Hello everyone, good day. Now we are in the lesson number 10 on grading and reporting of assessment results. So as you can see here, this picture is what we have in the higher education institutions. So we have these grades like 1.0, 125, 1.5, and so on. And below that is what the DepEd is using. Like if you have a grade below 75, it means that you did not meet expectations. But if you have 75 to 79, that's fairly satisfactory and so on. So I will start the discussion with the different grading types. One is the absolute grading. It's a criterion reference, but I'll be discussing it later. And then we also have relative grading. It's norm referenced. And we have grade contracting. It's usually on the agreed upon by the teacher and the student. And then on mastery grading, it's based on mastery. And then we have cumulative grading, like for the midterms, it's just 40% of the grade and 60% of the final grade, and it will comprise the final grade. And then averaging, it's more of adding all the quarter grades and then divide by 4 if you have 4 quarters. Absolute grading is based on a defined set of standards when evaluating a student's performance. Usually, its advantage is it that it has no reference to the performance of others, and all students can obtain high grades. But some disadvantages of it: performance standards are difficult to specify and justify, as they may vary unintentionally due to variations in test difficulty, student ability, and instructional effectiveness, and may be subject to raters' subjectivity. We have here an example of a absolute grading. I think this is what we are using in the university or even in DepEd. Like if we have a grade of 80 and above, that's 4.0 for some, it's outstanding, something like that. If you have 73 to 79, it's excellent, something like that. So we have a scoring range, and then we have an interpretation to that. That's absolute grading. If we have relative grading, it's based on how students' performance compared to others in a group or class. So usually this is based on the highest score, and then you will be starting and the lowest score, and then you'll be starting to place what grade based on the highest and the lowest that was that the group got. So its advantages: it's easy to interpret as it describes a rank in a group, and it can discriminate among levels of student performance. For its disadvantages, it provides inconsistent interpretation, as the meaning of a grade varies with the ability of the student group. Can be assigned without using a clear reference to the specific student performance. For example, here, this is a relative grading example. Usually, the highest grade example here is S, and it is the 90% no, of the total marks. So you can have like this for your relative grading. So for example, if you want to give 1.0, and then in your 100 item test, the highest score is 70, so you can get placed as the one who got 70 over 100 as 1.0, and then you have consider the others after that. Like those who will get 60, you can have them 1.25 or 1.5. It depends on the range of scores that you will be having, as long as your reference point is the highest score in that group and also with the lowest score in that group. We also have contract grading. Contract grading is a form of grading which results from cooperation between an instructor and their students, and it entails completion of a contracted number of assignments of specified quality that correspond to specific letter grades. These contracts often contain the following two characteristics. First, there are no finite amount of A grades given the class. Any student who completes the work that corresponds to a B grade will be given a B. The second characteristic is that instructors and students know exactly what is expected from them to receive a certain letter grade. I have here an example. So usually, first a teacher presents the grading contract to the class, then the class, if often, given time to read over the contract. Next, if the teacher chooses to do so, the teacher will negotiate the terms of the contract. This means that the number of missed or late assignments to achieve a certain grade will be negotiated. There may or may not be a grace period to allow changes in the contract. Ultimately, all final decisions are left to the teacher. At the end of the contract, students will earn the grade that matches the terms of the contract. So their grade is based on what is agreed upon. We also have mastery grading. Mastery grading system is an innovative way of grading students. It's used to create less focus on number grades, points, and averages, and more focus on education and a strong conceptual understanding of the subject. With mastery grading, your grade is more what you have done and much progress you have demonstrated. Usually, they are rated with insufficient evidence, beginning, emerging, proficient, or mastery. And then you can give them 1.0, 1.25, and so on, based on that evidences on their mastery level. Or if you are in depth ed, then you can have the did not meet expectations, the proficient, approaching proficiency, and so on. And then we have cumulative grading. So for cumulative grading, the previous grade has a bearing on the final grade. Like for example here, for the midterm grade here, you need to have a bearing on the prelims and then the tentative midterm grade. And then like for example here, the prelim grade is 93 plus twice the midterm grade tentative 80, and then divide the 3, then you get the final midterm grade, which is 84. But if in averaging or in average grading, you'll just sum up all the grades in a quarter and then divide it to number of quarters. Like here, you will have 80 plus 89 plus 86 plus 84 divided by 4 for Filipino. That's 85 as the final grade, and so on. So that's average grading. And then the DepEd K-12 grading system and the steps for computing the grades. The K-12 basic education program uses a standard and competency-based grading system. Usually the standards and the competency-based are more on the mastery. These are found in the curriculum guides. All grades will be based on the weighted raw score of the learner's summative assessments. The minimum grade needed to pass a specific learning area is 60, which is transmuted to 75. So you cannot see a grade in the card of 60, but it will be transmuted to 75 in the report card. The lowest mark that appear on the report card is 60 for quarterly grades and final grades. By the way, we also have that is also using the average grading system. Learners from grades 1 to 12 are graded on written work, performance tasks, and quarterly assessments every quarter. These three are given specific percentage weights that vary according to the nature of the learning area. So we have here the weight components for grade 1 to 10. So for language, araling panlipunan and edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, the written work is 30%, the performance task is 50%, and the quarterly assessment is 20%. For science and mathematics, the written work is 40%, the performance task is 40%, and the quarterly assessment is 20%. For MAPE and EPP/TLE, the written work is 20%, performance task is 60%, and then quarterly assessment is 20%. You can see here that in all the subject areas from grade 1 to 10, quarterly assessment is 20%, meaning the periodical exams. It's just 20% of the grade. For the performance task, much is given to MAPE and EPP and TLE. which we know that they are really more on performance tasks, no? So that's 60%, and then the language, AP, and ESP for 50%, and the science for math for 40%. For the written works, the science and mathematics had higher percentage of 40% as compared to the languages, AP, ESP, and MAPE, and TLE. For the senior high schools, it's different. So you have core subjects like general mathematics, statistics, and probability. Those are core subjects. So the written work is 25%, the performance task is 50%, and the quarterly assessment is 25%. For other subjects that are considered in the academic track, so you have here 25% for written work, 45% for performance tasks, and 30% for quarterly assessment. For the research, immersion, and others, written work is 35%, performance tasks is 40%, and the quarterly assessment is 25%. For the technical, vocational, livelihood track, and also the arts and design track and sports, all other subjects and work immersion, research and exhibit and performance, 20% for the written work, 60% for the performance task, and 20% for the quarterly assessment. Here's how to compute the grade. So the first step is get the total score of each component. Like for written work number 1, 18. For written work number 2, 22. So add up everything. So that's 145. And the highest score is 160. So you know that. And then the next is divide the total row score by the highest possible score. Like for example, on the first one, we have 145 as a total, divided the highest possible score, or the perfect score is 160. So 145 divide 160 times 100%, that is 90.63. So that is the percentage score of the written work. For the performance task, you add up everything. So 12 plus 13 plus 19 plus 15 plus 16 plus 25, that's 100. And then the highest score is 120. So 100 divide 120 times 100%. So that's 83.33. For the quarterly assessment, that's 40 over 50. Like in the first quarter, we got 40 over 50. That's 40 divided 50 times 100%, that's 80%. After that, you convert the percentage scores to the weighted scores. When you say weighted scores, the percentage based on this one, on our weight components. Like for the written work for language, it's 30% times 30%, this times 50%, quarterly assessment times 20%. So for example here, this is an English class, so the 90.633 will be multiplied to 0.30 because the written work for English is 30%. So you got 27.19 for the weighted score. Here, the performance task for English is 50%. So 83.33 that we have in here. So times 0.50, that's 41.67. And for the quarterly assessment for grade 4 is 20%. So 80 times 0.20, that's 16. And then you add everything, 27.19 plus 41.67 plus 16 is 84.6. So the 84.86. So the initial grade is 84.86. But we need to look into the transmutation table of what is meant by 84.86. So if you look into the transmutation table, the transmuted grade is 90. Let's see here. Where is 84.86 is here? That is 90 here, 90. So with that, the grade in English in the first quarter of the student is 90. So this is the transmuted grade. So you can look here into the initial grade of the student and then transmute it. You have here the equivalent. So if you will be putting grades already in the card, you cannot see decimal points because the transmuted grade already is in the integer form. So here is an example of the class record. So example, learner A got 18, 22, 17, this one. So you add everything. So that's 145. So 145 divide 160. That is 145 divide 160. That's 0.99063. Then times 100, that will become 90.63. And get 30% of the 90.63, that's 27.19. That's the weighted score for written work. For the performance task, add all the scores. So that's 100, divide the total, which is 120. So you get 0.8333 times 100. So that's 83.33. And then you get the weighted score, that is 41.67. So you already have 27.19 and 41.67. For the first quarter exam, you got 40 over 80. So 40 divide 50, that's 80. So 80 times 0.20, that is 16. So you add all weighted scores, so 27.19 plus 41.67 plus 16, that's 84.6. If you look into the transmutation table, 84.86 is 90. So that's your grade. It will be placed on the card. So what is meant by 90? It's outstanding. So 90 to 100, that's outstanding. For 85 to 89, that's very satisfactory. For 80 to 84, that's satisfactory. For 75 to 79, that's fairly satisfactory. And below 75, that did not meet expectations. So here is a sample of a card in, okay, this is for the junior high school and even in the elementary. And this is for the senior high school. So it's averaging. You look at it, you just have an average. No? It's averaging. For grades 1 to 3, for promotion or retention, final grade of at least 75 in all learning areas, and then you will be promoted to the next grade level. But if you did not meet expectations in more than 2 learning areas, in not more than 2 learning areas, so 1 or 2 subjects you did not meet expectations, so you need to take remedial classes for that, so that you will be given a recomputed final grade. You need to pass it, no? But if you have 3 or more learning areas that did not meet expectations, you are retained on the grade level. Similar with grade 4 to 10, you need to pass all the subjects with a grade of at least 75 to be promoted. And then if you have 1 or 2 did not meet expectation subject, then you need to take remedial classes and you need to have a passing recomputed final grade. But if you have 3 or more learning areas that did not meet expectations, so you'll be retained on the grade level. You must pass all the learning areas in the elementary to earn an elementary certificate and be promoted to junior high school. You must pass all the learning areas in the junior high school to earn the junior high school certificate and promoted to the senior high school. For grades 11 and 12, same, you need to have the final grade of at least 75 in all the learning areas to proceed to the next semester. And then, did not meet expectations in a prerequisite subject in a learning area, you must pass the remedial classes. And then if you did not meet expectation in any subject or learning area at the end of the semester, you need to pass the remedial classes. If not, then you need to retake the subject. And then you need to pass all the subjects or learning area in senior high school to earn a senior high school certificate. So here's a sample of a recomputed final grade. So you have a final grade and then the grade in the remedial class, and then what is the recomputed final grade. So you'll get an average.